Hello Rhinos, in this video I'm going to tell you how I reduced my A1C from above 10 to below 5. Why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, my name is John Collett. In March 2018, I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and within 6 months, I managed to reverse my condition naturally. And if I can do it, you can do it too. So here are the 7 steps that I followed to live a life medication-free of type 2 diabetes. Step 1, decide to reverse your type 2 diabetes. It's really important that you make that decision to reverse your type 2 diabetes no matter what. I always remember watching a documentary of a chap having his leg amputated, and in talking about how he was looking forward to having his fingers amputated next because he felt so much better not having the pain. You see, he'd got an infection in his leg, and because the type 2 diabetes was stopping his immune system from being able to heal that infection, it had gone gangrenous, and it was better to amputate the leg, otherwise he would have died. And it was at that point that I made a massive decision to reverse my type 2 diabetes, and it didn't matter what it took, I was going to do it. You see, I was meant to be the hero of my family. I was meant to be the protector, the provider, the person that was there to keep everybody safe. I'm sure you know how that feels. I didn't want to be the person that needed to be protected. I was meant to be the hero, and I was going to do everything I could to make sure I did that. I hope you decide to do the same. That then took me unwittingly on to the next step, which was educating myself. Tony Robbins, in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, he says that a belief is like a table with no legs. Unless you educate yourself about the actual facts, then when you do that, you put the legs underneath the table, you've got a stable table. Let me give you an example. Where does a camel store its water? If you said it's humps, unfortunately you're mistaken. And don't panic, I made that massive mistake. There's even a video on my YouTube channel where I say a camel stores water in its humps. And it weren't until someone who was very kindly pointed out that that weren't the case that I went and educated myself on the truth, and it turns out camels store their water in their blood cells, okay? Which I did not realize I had this belief, and maybe you've been in the same situation. I'm going to stick 2 videos in the description below for you. One called Diabetes, the Secret Killer, which is a documentary from the UK about hospital life and people with type 2 diabetes and all the consequences that they have to deal with. And another documentary called Sugar, the Bitter Truth, which is done from the University of California. Fantastic documentary about sugar and the consequences of sugar on our bodies and how that's affecting our bodies on a regular basis. When you understand, when you actually have the facts about how type 2 diabetes is caused and how that is affecting us as a race in the Western world, especially on a day-to-day basis, it's going to be much easier for you to make a decision to reverse your type 2 diabetes. Step 3, change your environment. When you watch those 2 documentaries, one thing should be very clear when you come out of it, is that we are sugar addicts. We're all sugar addicts. And you wouldn't say to a drug addict who wants to get clean of his drug addiction to go live in a drug den. So why would you live in an environment where there's lots of processed sugar that you're addicted to? Throw that stuff out. Get a bin bag, put it in the bag, throw it all out so it is not there to tempt you. Now I know, your family eats that food, your family likes eating that food. I get it. That's exactly what my wife said when I started doing this. And I said to her, you know what? I said, This didn't happen from me eating one bad meal and having a bad turn. This came from me eating lots and lots of different meals and it poisoning my body bit by bit. That stuff has poisoned me. I'm not going to allow it to poison you. I threw it out and it couldn't tempt me and it was a lot better that way. Step 4, we're finally going to talk about diet. One of the things that keeps on coming up on a regular basis in my Facebook group called Charging Down Type 2 Diabetes, and please, I'll put a link in it below, come and join us there, is that people get confused about what food they should eat. The reality is, right, we tend to eat the same meals on a week-to-week basis. I do. And I'm sure you do too. So what I did is I made a list of all the meals that we eat on a regular basis. I identified all the processed and sugary food and I replaced it with real natural food. So to give you an example, spaghetti. I replaced that with courgette spaghetti. Rice, I replaced with cauliflower rice. Pizza bases, cauliflower pizza bases. Didn't eat potatoes are particularly bad. I decided then to eat sweet potatoes, which are slightly better, but it's debatable. There's a lot of debate in the community about that. I make chips out of sweet potato chips. Yeah, I carried on eating fruit, but I checked out bananas out of my diet. I carried on eating beans or pulses as they call them. I do eat those as well, but because they're all natural food. So I've got some simple rules. Those simple rules are if they grow above ground, it's good. And if it grows below ground, I limit it. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a detailed person. And for those of you who want carb counts and things like that, that's fine. But that's not what I did at the beginning. I didn't concentrate on that. I did cut down the carbs as much as I can. But I just decided to eat natural food. Yes, I eat meat and fish. But you don't have to if that's not something that you want to do. Okay, but what I always try to do with all the food that I eat, I try as much as I can to eat organic food. It's not always feasible. Money's not always there to eat organic food all of the time. And sometimes, yeah, I'll have frozen food. It's better than eating processed, sugary food, man-made food. That's what I did. It's up to you what you do. You make it your own. But whatever you decide to do, test. Everyone's insulin resistance is different. So if you're going to try fruit, test it with your blood glucose meter. See how it affects you. See if it is going to give you massive spikes in your blood sugar. And if it is, then don't have it. You don't need to necessarily follow a strict diet. You just need to find the diet that's going to work for you. Do that and you'll be fine. And that takes us on to the 5th step, and that is exercise. I knew I had to do an exercise, so I picked an exercise that I loved. In the past, I'd gone to the gym, I didn't like it. I'd gone jogging, and I didn't like it. But I love wrestling. And there was a wrestler called DDP Yoga, Diamond Dallas Page, and he had produced a yoga-based system called DDP Yoga. And because I liked wrestling, I thought I'd give that a go. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I recommend you do the same thing for you. What is important here is that you do an exercise, one, that you love. Second, it has to be an exercise that's going to make you sweat. So going for a walk is a great exercise, but going for a stroll where you don't sweat is probably not going to be good enough. Try and get some speed into it, get a sweat going. How often do I exercise? Well, I tend to exercise at least 5 times a week, but I strongly recommend you exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week, and you do about 30 to 40 minutes. Not at the beginning, and I'm going to put a video here about diabetes and exercise, and and all about the best way to get into all of that. Tip 6, intermittent fasting. Now I'm going to be straight up with you. I didn't start intermittent fasting until after I'd reversed my type 2 diabetes already. But what intermittent fasting has done is reduce my blood sugar to another level again, which has got my A1C to below 5 into the mid 4s. Okay, so I do advise it. Now, what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is a period of time where you don't eat. So when you have your last meal at night to the time you have your breakfast in the morning. So you break your fast, that's what it is. Now, don't think this is no newfangled thing. Lots of religious festivals like Ramadan are all put around fasting. It's actually something that's really, really good for your body. Most people will fast between they'll go a 16 hour period without eating, and then an 8-hour period while you do eat. There are some people who do more extreme versions of that, and you've got to find out what works for you. Now, what happens when you go into fasting is that your body starts to have time to heal itself. It starts getting rid of all the old cells and it starts putting newer cells into your body. Your body then starts to go into ketosis and starts to burn the fat in your body for energy rather than just the carbs that you put into it. So that helps you reduce the fat cells in your body that you need to get rid of to help with your type 2 diabetes. And as a result, it reduces blood sugar. It really, really works. It's a fantastic thing. Now, personally, like I said, I went on to eating natural food first, and it was a while after I got into the habit of doing that I start doing the fasting. I found it a bit easier to do that. But if you think you can go straight into fasting and eating natural food, then you go for it. But me personally, I would advise get used to the change in the foods first, fast after. Tip 7, change the way you talk to yourself. If you've been watching this video and you've been saying to yourself, I don't like exercise, I'm not a good cook, I got a sweet tooth, then me and you have got something in common, because these are the type of things that I used to say to myself. I want you to imagine this. If Thomas Edison and Lewis Latimer, who were famous for inventing the light bulb, had said to themselves they weren't great inventors, everything they did failed, do you think they would have tried 10,000 times to find a way to invent the light bulb? No, they wouldn't have. They would have stopped because of the things that they tell themselves on a regular basis. Henry Ford says that if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And he's spot on. If you believe you're not very good at exercise, you're not a good cook, you've got a sweet tooth, you're not good at keeping things up, then you're right. But if you change that self-talk to yourself, start saying, I love doing exercise, I love cooking, I love eating healthy food, I love being the hero for my family, or I'm not a number, I'm a rhino. You're going to change your complete outlook on the outcome that you want, which is reversing your type 2 diabetes naturally. Now, I'm going to stick a video here about diabetic diets and a low carb diet, but just remember, you're no longer a number, you're a rhino. Now charge.